Hello everyone, and thank you for attending the Public-Facing Portals Consulting webinar from Cities Digital. Today we're going to talk about best practices and some tips and tricks and see some ways that you can customize your public-facing portal. And this webinar will be good for anybody who's looking to share information, whether it's out with people who are not part of your agency, or whether it's people who you want to have read-only access internally in your organization as well, using the public portal functionality. So we're going to go through ways that you can customize the products, which products are part of this process, and some best practices as well. We'll talk about how to make it customizable so that it looks and feels part of your organization to anyone who accesses it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions at any time, you can type them into your GoToWebinar window that's popped up. There's a little question and answer session. I will be going through all of the questions at the end, so please feel free to add them at any time and I'll go through them at the end. All right. So first we're going to start with what products are part of presenting your information to the public through Laserfiche. What most people think of is Laserfiche WebLink, which is also sometimes referred to as Public Portal. This is the read-only web interface to your Laserfiche repository. However, we're also going to talk a little bit today about Forms Portal. So Laserfiche's eForms is called Forms, Laserfiche Forms, and then if you have an add-on called the Forms Portal, you can collect information from members of the public or unauthenticated users. So basically anyone can submit. So I'm going to show you a way that you can use Forms Portal to also share and collect information from the public. And then we're also going to touch on workflow. So today's free download is a configuration, it's a simple workflow that will take Forms Portal submissions and then take them from a public-facing Forms instance and move them into an internal-facing Forms instance. So you can take public submissions and process them internally. So WebLink Public Portal, again, it's read-only access directly to your Laserfiche repository. So this is accessing documents or copies of documents that are actually in your Laserfiche repository. So if you're using WebLink to share information, you don't have to copy your documents to a separate website or web server. You can use WebLink for public access, meaning you don't have to log in at all, or you can have people log in using either a username and password in Laserfiche or a Windows authentication. And then each virtual directory that you roll out in WebLink can be customized. So we'll see later how you can customize the public portal to look differently and have the characteristics that you want. But you can have multiple different virtual directories or DBIDs so that you can have multiple WebLink sites. So you're presenting relevant looking information to the intended audience. So let's take a look here at the licensing for Public Portal, just because it has recently changed, and I want to make sure that everybody understands if you have Public Portal, what is included, and if you don't have it yet, what you might need. So WebLink Public Portal is licensed by the number of connections, and so these are simultaneous connections to your Laserfiche repository. And again, this is read-only. And it connects to a single, these Avante ones connect to a single server. Rio is pretty similar. It has multiple different levels that you can be licensed for the WebLink Public Portal at. And then it just has one pilot public portal, which has 25 concurrent connections. The rest have unlimited. And then just depending on how many Laserfiche servers you're looking to connect to, you would buy the appropriate license for that. All right, so let's talk about Forms Portal. Forms Portal is an add-on to the Laserfiche suite. It is used generally mainly to collect information, so you can publish forms that are public and anyone can submit information into them. But it can also be used as a lookup to display information. So you can pull back information into a public form from a database or from the repository, which we'll look at a little bit later. And then workflow. So workflow would be used in the context of public-facing information to route forms from an external to an internal instance. It can also be used to write the data that's collected from forms to documents. For instance, if you're taking public submissions of a permit request, you can write that permit information then to the final permit at the end of the process once it's been approved. So let's talk a little bit about best practices for implementing the public portal. So one thing that's always a big question about public portals is web security. And we've popped up here a little diagram, I'll zoom in a second, for how to make this information available to the public but secure as well. So a lot of times when you're making content available outside your network, and again, you don't have to use WebLink or public portal outside of your network, but if you do, you'll want to install the web application in your DMZ. That will allow that layer of separation between your internal network and your external source as well. All right, so typically when you implement WebLink, you will be interacting with users outside your network. A lot of times you're using anonymous access. So people will log in with just one connection profile across everybody who hits that website, and they'll all get access to the same files. That being said, that's not the only way you can use WebLink, which we'll see a little bit later. You can also allow people to log in, and then you will be able to give them access to different sets of files. So one example of how you might use anonymous versus non-anonymous access is if you have documents that you want to be able to provide to the public, but you also would like to use WebLink as the repository source for your GIS integration. In that case, you might provide different access to your internal GIS users than the public. And if that were the case, you would have your public users use the public site that doesn't require any login, but your internal users might access through their GIS integration those WebLink documents with either a username and password or their Windows authentication. If you are implementing WebLink publicly, you might install it in the DMZ, and then you might also have an installation internally as well. WebLink will generally use the public account for whatever documents you would like to have be public, and then some sort of Laserfiche authentication for a different connection type. If you would like to encrypt the communications, you can use encryption with WebLink. You can encrypt your browser communication by installing an SSL certificate in IIS and then applying that certificate to WebLink. You can also encrypt your Laserfiche traffic if you'd like, and that's set within the registry on your key. Now these specifics, more details of these specifics of how to set up WebLink and how to secure it are available in the WebLink configuration guide, which is listed in the slides that we're going to publish for this presentation. So if you wanted to look more specifically at exactly the specifications and the step-by-steps, we'll have those there as well. All right, so the best practices for encryption is if at all possible, enable SSL in your IIS. And one possible exception is if it's completely public information, if you don't want to make that public, or if you don't want to encrypt that communication, you can leave that because it's all public information. If you don't already have a WebLink server, but you're looking to implement one, Here are the server specs that they recommend for different levels of use. If you have less than 150 users on WebLink, you can implement with 8 cores, 8 gigabytes of RAM. If you have more, you can also look at distributing your WebLink traffic over multiple servers, over multiple WebLink servers. So if that's something that you're interested in getting some more details on, that would be a good thing to connect with our tech support team for some advice on what might be the appropriate load balancing for you. Next thing we're going to talk about is customizing WebLink. So being able to make WebLink user-friendly, make it look like it's part of your brand, applying your own colors, your own images and logos, and making sure that it's easy for your audience to be able to search and find what they're looking for. You can, in WebLink, create custom quick links to specific folders, and you can also create customized search forms so that users will have just a quick and easy search that goes straight to the document types that they're looking for. Another thing you can do is you can insert instructions on how to use your WebLink public portal right on one page, right on the home page or right on a specific page, or tips. You can have little tips pop up. So because WebLink is a web-based application, there's a lot of different things you can do with it. That being said, most of it can be done without having any web programming background or specific knowledge. So let's go through some examples. You don't have to take it from me. I've pulled the web and found a few examples of customized WebLink pages. So this is the City of Everett's customized WebLink page. This is their digital record center. They have a number of different customizations in here, including specific links to documents and folders, as well as links to search screens. And they've laid it all out into a grid format so that it separates by type. The City of Wilsonville has also customized their WebLink. This one looks a little bit different. You can see they still have their WebLink page embedded into their full website, but they're showing the browse through the folder option. So you're able to, on this WebLink, browse down through the folders and click on your specific document that you want this way. This one, City of Stillwater in Minnesota, shows the customization of the homepage. So they've inserted their logo, customized the welcome message, and then they have some links to specific search forms, and then the main web links search as well, available on their homepage. Here's another view of just another example of putting the WebLink site within your overall web page and having the browser available with the documents. And then here's another customization of the welcome page in WebLink. So this shows a logo that goes a little further across, custom header, and customized welcome message, as well as a really straightforward search and a couple of links to specific search forms. And then one more example. So this one is the City of Renton's Document Center. This is sorted by different departments, and each department has quick links to specific folders or search forms that they've created. And they have headers in between the browse and the search. So let's take a look at how you can do those. So you've gotten WebLink, you've implemented it, and now you want to start setting it up and making it look cool or look like it belongs in your agency. So these are the things that you can customize. Just at its very most basic, there is a nice editor that allows you to easily edit theme, welcome page, navigation, the way you see your documents, and how you can display your search results. We're also going to dive a little bit into the advanced features that you can customize in Laserfiche. I'm not going to go through step by step, but I'll show you what some of the options are and where to access the step-by-step instructions. All right, so within Laserfiche WebLink, you have the WebLink Administrators utility. And if you're on version 9, it's an installed program. If you're on version 10, it's a web-based program. The screenshots that I'm showing today are going to be from version 10, but they'll look and act really similar in the version 9 installed version as well. So this screenshot is the first tab within your WebLink Administrators utility, and this is just showing how you can customize the colors. So it uses web colors, but if you don't know your web colors, it also has a color picker. So you can choose your specific color over here just by dragging your color picker around to somewhere on the color panel here. You can customize background, listings for text, the text itself, links, the top bar, the borders, headers and footers, etc. And the next tab over, you can upload your custom images. You can do an image for the search pane, an image for your welcome page, a header across the top as well. So you can really make it feel like it's an embedded part of your organization's existing web content. Here's the just super easy, quick GUI editor for the welcome page. So you can type in your title and your text. So this is just what appears on the first landing page of WebLink. You can choose if you want that search box to show up or not. If you choose yes, that's going to be a basic search, like a Laserfiche basic search. So annotations, text, document names, and the metadata as well. So you can connect, if you have multiple repositories, you can connect Laserfiche WebLink to multiple repositories. So there's a repository picker as well. So like we talked about before, you can set up multiple WebLink welcome pages depending on how many sites you create. So this would be where you would choose which repository you're working on. Then you can set up what's called custom links. Custom links are basically a link that goes from your welcome page to either a folder within your repository. So let's say you want to route somebody to the ordinances folder so they can search through all of your city ordinances. Then you'd be able to select ordinances as a folder, and that would become a custom link. And you can create, in this window, custom search forms. So let's break that down a little bit. So when you're in Laserfiche, right, one of the best ways to find documents is to be able to do a search. And in Laserfiche Client, when you go and you do a search, you choose your criteria and you click search. However, a lot of times WebLink users are some of the less frequent users of Laserfiche. So they're not going to be as familiar with the search criteria or what metadata you're using, or maybe even what folders you're using to organize your content. So creating a customized search form for them that might have some information already plugged in, or have the number of available criteria to choose from narrowed down a little bit to only things that would be relevant, is really helpful for making the search experience quick, easy, and intuitive for your public users. So within this GUI editor, you can create a search form, and then you can add that to your custom links area so that you'd be able to put it in the order that you want it to display on in your welcome page. Here is a screenshot showing what a custom search editor looks like. In this case, I've chosen a field search, and I've chosen this template, and I just told it to add all of my fields from this template. If I wanted to, I could put in defaults that would help the user, or I could take certain ones out if it's not important to have all of these fields in my search for the public user. And then I would be able to also customize how those search results appear. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the advanced part. The next thing that's a big part of the user experience is the document viewer. So within WebLink, right, the ultimate goal is to get the end user to their document. And then what is that document going to look like when they get there? This is like setting your properties in your Laserfiche client. So the default cursor mode can be pan or zoom. Your zoom level, you can set what the default zoom level with whether it's fit to page or fit to width. You can choose to display or not display the breadcrumb, which is that part above the image that will show the levels of folders that you had to go through to get to that document. You can also highlight your internet search results or not. So if you're searching for text and if you want to be able to highlight those and show the highlights of the text hits, you could do that. You can choose to show or not show annotations by default. That's your sticky notes, highlights, stamps, and redactions. You can also enable a watermark. So this is, it shows through WebLink, it shows property of X city, or in this case, property of the city. And that will show whenever anybody accesses documents through WebLink so that they know that it's an official document of the city. Next thing that you can do is, that's the same. Search results is the next thing that we'll talk about. So when somebody does a search using one of your customized search panes, they'll be able to then see the results displayed how you'd like them to see them. So you can choose entry properties, and that is like the creation date, the modification date, things like that, or you can hide that. So if that's not something that's going to be important to a public user, that might be something that you would just hide. Another thing you can do is show or hide the template fields, so user selected fields. Would you like for that to be displayed or not? You can choose the context hits to show. Context hits are like this down below where it says what page each time that instance of the word or phrase that you searched on appears. So you'll be able to show that as well. You can also show thumbnails, which is great if you're using WebLink primarily for images. It will show a quick thumbnail of whatever image that you're looking for. You can also allow thumbnails to be shown but minimized so that they are able to expand that thumbnail area and be able to see the quick screenshot or quick small little piece of the image. And then you can also show or hide metadata. So those are all the options in the basic configuration pane of the WebLink Administrator's utility. Let's talk a little bit about advanced. So we got through the basic colors, we uploaded our images, we got our search forms, we got our quick links, and we got our search results to display how we want them to. But if you feel like dabbling a little bit in CSS, JavaScript, or some page controls, there are some things that you can do. And if you follow step-by-step instructions, you don't even necessarily need to have an in-depth background on any of these. But you can just insert little small changes into the code that might have a big impact on how you use WebLink. So let's talk about some of the more popular ones. All of these are contained within a reference document that will be shown at the end of the presentation here. So if you did want to see where to make any of these changes, they all came from the Customizing WebLink presentation. All right, so the first thing that a lot of people ask for is how can I hide the My WebLink link from the upper right-hand corner of the landing page? My WebLink is like your tools and options in the Laserfiche client, but if you're portraying this out to the public, you don't necessarily want them to be able to access the My WebLink options area. So if you would like to hide that, you can remove that link from the code, and actually you can remove any of these links from the code but by just going into the configuration file and removing that language. So then you would be able to show your page without all of those links at the top. You can also, if you're an organization that implemented Laserfiche with records management, you can remove the records management search option from your search window within WebLink. For those of you who are not familiar with the records management search, it allows you to search for documents that are eligible to be destroyed or eligible to be cut off or have certain retention assigned to them. that might not be something that's super helpful to a public user. So if you want to just remove it and eliminate confusion, you'll be able to do that by just editing the code a little bit. And then they would have just the normal customized search options, which are the, page properties and document name and path and metadata. The next one you can do is you can change the way a document shows when it's selected within WebLink. So by default, WebLink shows something similar to the Laserfiche web access or client, right? It will show metadata and thumbnails over on the left, and then the image pane in the middle. And you can page through using the toolbar at the top. If instead you prefer to just show someone a document that looks more maybe standard for the way that web browsers show documents like PDFs or images, you can set the default to be just this full page or full screen display. So they still have the options to browse through the pages and to download it to a PDF, but they just won't have any of that metadata or thumbnails or the web link bar at the top. Another thing you can do is if you did want to leave that details pane over on the left of the document viewer, you can set which pane you would like to show up as the default. So Laserfiche's out of the box default is metadata. But if you think people would be more interested and it would be more helpful for them to see thumbnails first, you can set thumbnails as the main pane that shows up. Another thing you can do that's kind of neat is once you have a set of documents displayed in WebLink, for any that are available to be downloaded that have pages, so you can see these ones don't have any pages, so you can't really download them, but you can make this little download icon appear so that it's real easy for them to select and download documents right from the results here. And kind of going along with that, you can also enable the grid view. I'm going to just jump ahead real quick. So by default, Laserfiche's search options show up like this, where it's a document and then it has some properties listed below, and it sorts in whatever criteria you requested. But if you want to display your search results more similar to how they look in the Laserfiche client, you're able to enable this grid view instead of the default WebLink results view, and then you'll be able to see more properties about the document similar to how people who are currently using Laserfiche would be used to seeing them. And then the next thing you can do is you can sort. You can choose whether it sorts ascending or descending and the different properties, and that's something that you would control within the page controls. You would set up, if you have certain searches that you want to be sorted some ways and other searches in other ways, or if you want to default always the most recent on top, you can set that up so that people will get used to seeing things the way you think that they would normally expect to see them. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about for advanced is the ability to organize the links right on your home page. So if you look at this one, we have our basic landing page or our welcome page for WebLink. And in its very most basic configuration, we just have our links here listed in a big row kind of blob all together. If you would like to separate those out into different headings, you can do that. In this case, we've separated out into links for external users and links for internal users. Or like we saw in some of our examples before, you could make a heading for a particular department or a particular, we had like one of them has their links separated out by department, but then also browse versus search options so that you would be able to kind of jump to your category first, then sort through the links and choose the one that's relevant to you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about WebLink, how to get it up and running, how to customize it, make it look like you want it to. And if you are fortunate enough to also have the ability to collect public forms, I wanted to touch on this a little bit too. Even though forms is primarily, like when you first think about it, it will be mostly used for collecting information from the public or from a specific set of users. I also want to look at how we can use forms to display information and communicate information. So a couple of examples that we're going to talk about are using forms as a dashboard, using the embedded landing page functionality in forms, and also using forms with an iframe. So if we look at forms as a dashboard, I'm going to zoom in here. So if you use, this is Laserfiche Forms 10.3. So we have the ability to easily and quickly create tabbed pages. But in this case, this is an HTML text block that just includes a number of URLs to internal forms processes or different websites. And so if you would like to make a public-facing forms dashboard, you would be able to include HTML text blocks as well with links to maybe your most common forms processes or your most common city links that would be related to the forms process that they're working on. And you can customize, the way that it appears so that it fits with the rest of your theme. Another thing we can do is in Forms version 10.2 and later is we can create what's called a landing page. This is available in the administration area of Forms, and it allows you to create basically a website that's point and click configurable with just specific forms processes that will all display together on a particular URL. So in this case, I chose all of my forms processes that are related to contracts, and I'm showing them all together on a single landing page. And now I can distribute this and make it available to users so that they can see a quick snapshot of what the process looks like before they choose to click on any of these forms processes to start them. So it's a little more visual representation than the last dashboard. All right, and then this is another option, which is the ability to insert an iframe into a form. So in this form, what we can do is we can select a policy that we want to see, and then this will look up in the background. It will look up and display the specific related policy of what I selected. And then I'm able to, in this case, I'm just displaying this from WebLink. And I can page through the entire policy. It's pulling it live from whatever the most current version is in Laserfiche. And then in this case, I'm acknowledging it and submitting my acknowledgement of agreement or not agreement. But this could be used a number of different ways. So this could be used to display specific information related to what process they're working on. It could also be launching specific policies or specific language based on a previous radio button choice. It could also pull multiple documents based on checkboxes that were selected. So there's a lot of different ways that you could use an iframe within a form. On the flip side, you can also insert a Laserfiche form as an iframe on your website. So if you want to use forms, public-facing forms for a event registration for a city event or for your agency's event, you can insert that and embed it in your website using a public-facing form and an iframe. All right, so like normal, I'm going to list out my resources here for this particular presentation so that if you want some more details or you want to look at the specifics or go step by step through any of the advanced configurations, you're able to find those. These are our general resources here. So Laserfiche Answers has a lot of good information about setting up public portals, best practices to specific questions, particularly related to authentication, or I know there's a lot of articles on there about iframes if you're looking to implement with iframes. Here's our solutions exchange. So if you want to see some ideas of what people have done with WebLink, there's a lot of great articles on the solution exchange as well. There's a really great one about getting a public WebLink form up and running in, I believe it is 8 hours, but there's an article about how to get WebLink up and running really quickly, and it goes step by step in all the different things that they put together to get their WebLink site up and running really quickly. Here's our client-facing portal. This will allow you to download the slides from this presentation, as well as that workflow to transfer from external facing forms to internal, and a readiness checklist for WebLink. Here are the specific Laserfiche resources. So best practices in web products, architecting a Laserfiche environment. So if you want to look at some of the network architecture, hardware planning and specifications. So if you're looking at implementing a web server in context with your other servers. Advanced WebLink customization, that's where those CSS and other examples of customizing advanced things are located. And then designing a Laserfiche environment as well. All right, so that is the end of the content for the public-facing portals. Here's my shameless plug for next month's webinar, which is going to be search tips and tricks. We're going to go through the top 10 best searching tips, how to save searches that actually work for you and get you to your documents without a ton of extra non-related information, troubleshooting search issues, and how you can quickly and easily share your favorite searches with your friends. That's coming up on June 14th. Don't forget to register. And then today, if you could, before you leave or right after you leave, if you could fill out the survey that pops up once you exit a GoToWebinar, you could get your chance to win this awesome t-shirt, which has the word ninja on it, which means it's automatically amazing. And that's it for today. So I'm going to switch over and answer any questions that have popped up throughout the webinar. So feel free to send some in if you have any questions. All right, I do not see any questions, so I will assume that no one has any questions for today. So that is it for today then. Thank you everyone for attending our Cities Digital Consulting webinar on public-facing portals. Hope to see you next month.